Here we go. What's up, guys? Another episode of our Be Our Friends pod. Welcome, friends.
Yeah.
We got a lot more friends today.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of friends. So I got a special guest, aka friend, aka I feel like I've known.
Keep going.
I don't have any more.
She's blending in. She's blending in with the sign.
Chelsea, you're on the pod.
Yes, I'm
How
so
do you
excited.
feel?
I feel
Yeah.
honored. Like, y'all are cool, and I feel like I'm part of the cool kids club.
Oh, yay. Well, we're not that cool. Chelsea
you're
and
a
I have
cool
known
kid.
each other. You're my longest friend.
Am I really?
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Because we met in 6th grade.
6th grade.
When I balled you up.
That's not we can't start the podcast.
Don't let that slide.
with false. Yeah.
Don't let that slide.
I'm
Do you
not
guys
letting
know,
that
by the
That's
way,
crazy.
we
That's
all
crazy.
played basketball.
Oh, we're all ballers.
Well,
So I wore this.
Wait a second,
That's
you're right.
what's
huh?
up.
I wore this
Hey, yo.
for this episode.
That's crazy.
Let's run it. Let's run it.
Yeah.
That's
crazy.
right. Hey,
we go
Can
run
we-
some five.
can we,
Actually, we could because
Nicole.
we all have different different positions.
That's true. Just like point guard, shooting guard.
Well, you're gonna have to be
I'm like
point
a
guard.
center. Yeah.
There we
Girl.
go. You are? That's crazy.
Yeah, in Little League.
Jared, you got center.
I got center.
Jared got
All right.
you.
At my build, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I
Okay, we
actually?
have
Paint
DJ.
beast.
Oh, yeah, we have DJ.
DJ center
Yo.
for sure.
What? No, huh?
What do you mean? No, you're the
You're the
tallest
tallest
guy.
of all of us.
Nah.
So yeah. It's okay.
I'll make the
Mr.
sacrifice
DJ, you want to tell
necessary.
us your name?
DJ.
Oh, nice. And then we got Jared.
Wait, it doesn't stand for anything?
Yeah, it stands for Dewan Jr.
What?
Hey.
Wow. I know
Oh,
that.
DJ.
what does your
Cross
name
up
stand for?
What?
Jared.
Jared?
Jared.
I don't know.
Mm,
I was just given that name.
yeah.
Yep.
Me too. Actually, my name is not really Nicole.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
What is
Do you
it?
know my first name?
Jacqueline.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah. You
There we
do.
go.
You
That
do.
was
6th grade,
a
dude.
little scared, but she said it.
You know, Chelsea and I have had so
Was
many.
that like not public information? Was it?
No,
not
that is
public?
no, that's public.
Oh, oof.
It's Jacqueline Nicole.
Like I'm gonna get kicked off the podcast in the first 3 minutes.
Get outta here.
That's not right. Yeah.
Anyways, hey, we're gonna jump in on the pod. It's gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be really conversational. Is that even a word? Really conversational?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
That's the right
Chelsea's here, so I get really nervous. She's a lot smarter than me.
Oh, man.
Not true. She's a lot smarter, but I'm a better basketball player.
Whoa.
No, actually, Chelsea is, I think,
Taking shots.
moving on.
That's crazy.
I only say that because Chelsea, in school, literally my goal was to like beat you in like every class. Remember in woodshop, we took woodshop and I was like, this is the class that I'm gonna get a better grade than Chelsea.
But
And
what
I-
happened?
Hold on, I got a 96. I got a 96 and I went to Chelsea and I was like, yo, Charles, like, Mr. Zoride gave me a 96 on my clock. What did you get?
Remember, it was Mr. Zorad.
It was, and then you're like, oh, I got 104. And I was like, dude, how'd you get higher than the highest score?
Yo.
And you're like, oh,
That
I
is a true story.
It is. You're like, oh, I got
It's
extra
okay.
credit.
I should have in that moment said good job because that was big for you. I didn't have to give
I think
you
that was my
104.
first A.
So y'all are like
crazy.
mad
That was-
competitive.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
How'd you guys meet? How'd you guys meet? 6th grade.
Basketball.
Basketball.
Didn't
Oh,
you have a broken
basketball?
arm when we
Wow.
first met, right?
Yeah,
Because
I did.
we were playing City.
yeah,
the rec.
and I broke it playing. Yeah, playing in City.
Was it because I crossed you over?
Ooh.
Can I actually? I'm gonna ask Chelsea a
No.
question real quick.
Yeah.
Chelsea, if you could describe Nicole's basketball
Oh,
game
gosh.
by using any 3 or 2 animals, how would you describe it?
Probably
Animals.
lion.
Yeah.
A lion.
Lion.
Okay.
Nicole's built.
A
Bear.
cat
A cat. Okay.
because it's just like. You know, cats appear randomly out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That was her. Like, where did you
Oh.
come
Yeah,
from?
that's
Uh-huh.
true.
Oh, she got that sneak in her.
There
Yeah,
we
she
go.
Oh,
does.
she'll back cut you on.
Yeah, she
okay.
will.
Okay.
And she used her little bony elbows.
Oh, chicken wing, that little chicken wing.
Like,
That little
y'all, she
chicken wing.
would check.
Okay.
Like,
Strap you
what?
in.
Little
Ooh.
top,
Grabbing
little
jerseys?
top.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Smart.
Oh.
Hey,
So what's
I
such
told
a
you I
sneaky
would.
animal?
That's
That's like
crazy.
just
Lioness.
savage.
But you would do that too, like.
Yeah.
Like
I would say
Nicole's
those
roaring
two,
down the court
actually.
again.
She
Wait a
was
second.
brutal. But yeah.
Oh,
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That was really awesome.
Hey, maybe we'll have a good podcast episode where we actually talk about important
Important things?
yeah.
I thought that was important.
I got a question, and then
Yes.
again, this is open for conversation, so don't wait for more questions. But Chelsea, I want to talk about, so our podcast is catered towards young leaders, young people, and one of the things that I feel like we've really been talking about in our heart for this podcast is really to encourage young people to keep going after the things God has for them, right? And so I love your story. I love who you are. I love what God has done in your life. I'm here because of you. I'm so thankful for the friendship and your constant pursuit when I was just a knucklehead in high school. But I want to talk a little bit about how did you overcome, and we're just going to go deep.
Yeah.
We'll just jump
Yeah.
right in here. But how did you overcome certain failures or disappointments or things in your life to get you to where you are? Because you're a creative director, right, at the church
Yeah.
that you serve at. How did you get there at 25 years old?
That's a good question. So, when I went to college, I went to a Bible college, and I met a global communicator who traveled the globe, really well-known person, and from there, God began to open doors. And I just entered in with the perspective of, I want to help. Like, you're somewhere where I think I could be, so how can I come alongside and help? And so I just started saying yes to everything. And from there, I started to run her social media, run her website. I went to school at like Google because I didn't know what I was doing. So I Googled everything, and I acquired all these skills over the year, and eventually planted a church with this person. Stuff that I never saw myself doing. And it was just me saying yes, just saying yes to stuff. I stopped playing basketball my 3rd year of college so that I could pursue full-time ministry. And that was a little bit disappointment as well, because I had a whole plan for my life. But when you deal with God, you never really have a plan for your life if you're rocking with him. So there was some disappointment I had to deal with basketball. But then when I planted the church, God began to blow my mind. But I just went public about this recently. But after 4 years of planting this church, from conception to 4 years old, the church just started to bloom. I felt a shift was taking place after the pandemic. I just didn't know what it looked like. So I was praying like, Lord, give me a burning building, like not even a burning bush, because if I see a burning bush, I'm walking past it. Like I am not Moses, I'm Chelsie. So he did it. And I remember one day I was sitting, he said, if you lose everything tomorrow, will you still follow me? And I heard it twice. I'm like, that's kind of weird. The very next day, I was brought into the office with these people that I planted the church with, traveled the globe with, traveled the country with, started podcasts, websites, this whole thing. 7 years I was rocking with them, spent holidays, vacation, and then just out of nowhere, they let me go. With still to this day, it's been 1.5 years. Wow. I don't know why. I don't know a reason, and they've no longer talked to me since that day. Like people I call family. And so from that moment on, when you talk about disappointment, that's all I felt. I didn't only feel disappointment, I felt disposable. Because when you're dealing with church and church people, you have an expectation of how Christians are supposed to treat you. When they don't, you're left feeling disappointed and a little lied to. So I had to sit in that, like, God, how could your people do this to me? And as I sat and wrestled with that with God, he reminded me, like, he is not a reflection of all what we do all the time. We're sinners when we fall short. So when I was able to separate what people have done to me versus what God has done for me, you're able to handle disappointment a little bit better.
That's good.
And I had to recognize, because if you have an improper perspective of what God's role is in your life, his job is to come sometimes and to cut and sever things from you. That's his job. He knows why, we don't always. So if he comes and there's disappointment that's inflicted on you, but you have a proper perspective of who he is, you'll be like, God, I don't know what you're doing, but I trust you. Amen. That's how I've handled disappointment. In the gray areas, when you don't really know what's happening, I can trust he's got me this far. Like, little did I know the job that I got fired from, the church that I'm at now was looking for that position. And they brought me in. And from that moment, God's began to elevate me. But in moments of disappointment, you have to sit and ask yourself, do I believe God is who he says he is?
That's so good.
Wow.
If I believe that, then disappointment doesn't make it easier, but I trust God in the middle of it, and it makes it worth it.
That's good too, because talk about church hurt. Right? And we got a culture and a society that doesn't go back to church because they've been hurt by the church. How did you go back to church after being hurt by church?
Listen, I was not, I prayed. This is one thing I prayed. God, I will do whatever you have for me next, but I will never go back into ministry. Now, never tell God what you're never going to do, because he's most likely going to do the opposite. Like, legit, I should have prayed, I'll never marry Michael B. Jordan. Like, that's just not, that's not what I want, God. I'm not worthy.
That's funny. That got me,
But
that got me, that got
still
me.
single, here I am. And so,
I have her number.
Here I am.
Hey, we'll pray for you after. We'll pray for you after.
We'll lay
pray for
hands.
me, pray for me.
That's funny.
So I prayed I would never go back into ministry or church, because why would I put myself in a position to be hurt again? Like, why would I set foot back into this place? And I had to remember that people hurt me, not God.
Wow.
People hurt me, not God. So when I'm able to separate again the fallenness and the sin of man versus the goodness of God, I'm able to step back into an environment, because I'm not in the church to gain anything from people. I'm in
Yeah.
the church to do what God's called me to do. So
So
when you
good.
walk in with that perspective of people are going to hurt me, sheep will be sheep, people will be people, I will get hurt again. At the end of the day, God has my back. I was able to step back into a church
So good.
position because I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing what he told me to do.
I love that.
And what
Yeah.
a
It's good.
great opportunity for you to be offended in that
Mm.
moment.
Yeah.
But in that time, you leaned on the Lord. You
Mm.
really was led by the Lord to not really allow this unforgiveness, like harbor that,
Yeah.
and really let that deteriorate you. So
Mhm.
how were you?
So
How were you able to get over that offense with people?
That's a good question. I'm going to be honest. I'm not fully over the offense.
Mm.
I'm still healing. I think forgiveness is a everyday choice that you
Process.
get to make. That's why Jesus is like, you need to forgive multiple times, because he knows one thing will trigger your feelings of unforgiveness, hatred, whatever it may be. And so I'm not fully over it. I'm about 80% healed. And so the way I'm able to constantly get over it is I read a book called Forgiving What You Can't Forget. And in that book, I went through this exercise and it changed my life. And it was for each offense that you felt, right? I forgive whoever their name is for the one offense that they did. And on the back, I forgive them for how it still impacts me today. So with every offense, you write it down on an index card, you put it on the floor, and you put a red piece of felt over it. The red piece of felt symbolizes Jesus' blood covering that offense. So you do it for every offense.
So
I went through
good.
this exercise, and my floor was covered in red of what
Wow.
I had just went through. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's a lot. Then in the book it says, look at the red. Whoever inflicted that much pain on you is going through that pain times 10. And when I was able to recognize hurt people truly do hurt people, I'm able to lead with a sense of compassion. There's no way believers can hurt me this bad if they're not going through it themselves. So I was able to enter it with compassion.
What a
So
great
when
perspective.
I do have offenses that rise up, I think this person must be struggling. This person must be going through things I'm unaware of. So I could lead with a sense of grace. It's not easy. It's an everyday thing I have to train my mind to do. But I'm not fully over the offense, if I can be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said,
Good.
it's a daily thing that we have to
Yeah.
walk through. Like we could be like, Lord, I forgive this person one day.
Yeah, because have you ever like been in a relationship or ever broke up with somebody or somebody broke up with you and you get over it, but you hear like a song or a smell of food that reminds you of that person,
Get
you're
salty.
mad all
Yep,
over
you're
again?
salty, yep.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is.
Hey, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Still
You
single.
remember
yeah.
that one food?
That's
It's
awesome.
like she was
We
yelling
need to
at
eat that meal.
you were
together.
yelling at me at the
Yeah.
food that was outside.
Yeah,
That reminds you
I
of
think I
someone?
was going through something. Yeah, personally. So pray for me, guys.
That's so funny. That is so funny.
Oh,
Wow.
dude, what a healthy perspective.
Yeah.
You said something, serving. I'm gonna take it back to 7 years ago or 8 years
Yeah.
ago when you served for this person that the Lord told you to serve for. I love how you just said yes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we live in a culture where we want to be served but not serve.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right, where we want them to build for us, but we're not willing to submit and build for other people. Let's talk about this. I think we all serve in a certain capacity. Talk to me a little bit, and maybe we can just kind of go down the line.
Yeah.
What does serving look like for you? The importance of serving, and maybe we can kind of see where this conversation takes us.
Let's start on your side.
Yeah, for sure. I think serving it's so important, to stay rooted in where
Yes.
you're at, to stay planted in where you're at. And serving to a certain capacity, like I'm very similar to you. Like I've just been saying yes to a lot of things, and it could have been damaging to me, kind of overwhelming myself at times. But I think it's good because the keys to the next level is this level, right? And so being in the position, being exactly where God has called me to be, and running in this lane, and not looking for the next thing or that next promotion, but allowing God to be the promoter, right? Promotion doesn't come from the east, the west, or the south, but it comes from the Lord. So I think serving is so important, and really like serving not unto man, but unto the Lord.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
so-
great.
My perspective going into it, yes, I wanna be impactful in the ministry that I serve, whether it be stacking chairs, whether it be not on the
That's right.
platform, but
Yeah.
but you know
That's
whatever
good.
it may be, cleaning the toilets. I just know that we are all one body, and that we all play a part, and
right.
just being obedient to God in this season, and not being so focused on that next season.
So good.
That's great.
That's so good.
For me, serving would have to, like, my perspective on it is like be consistent when you serve. Like you don't pick and choose when you want to serve. If God calls you to something, you do it when He says.
That's
and you do it on
right.
a consistent basis.
Yeah.
Like Jesus didn't heal somebody, then take the day off the next 3 days, then go heal another person. He was doing this every day. He was ministering every day, teaching somebody about love and peace and everything. So when it comes to serving, you have to go in that, and it's such a humbling and learning situation if you have the right perspective. Because many times the devil's going to try to get you, oh, well, why you have to do this for this person and they're not doing it for you.
Yeah.
And in today's society, something that you said is that we believe all of the thoughts that's in our head, but not all of the thoughts in our head are ours. And so that's just kind of the perspective that I go
So
about it
good.
when it comes with serving.
Y'all preaching today.
Taking notes.
I think for
Come on.
serving, for me, here's what I will say. The dreams and the visions that we have for our life aren't necessarily always bad. I think God gives us the ability to dream. And so people see the life that they want, or the lives that we have, and they want it, especially the next generation. But my thing is, I am where I'm at today because I served.
Yeah.
It's true.
Like, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And people, I think, look at the end result or look at my chapter 15, but didn't read the first 15 chapters.
Yeah.
I'm like, that? Not everybody wants to go through
Right.
the first
It's true.
15 chapters.
Yeah.
And so the global communicator that I served her ministry for 2 years before money was ever even a conversation.
Yeah.
I just did it on I quit basketball for it, full ride scholarship for it,
Yeah.
to go serve this person for free.
Mhm.
So then you look 7 years later and people envy now the stage and the mic that my serving has provided for
That's
me.
right.
Had I not said yes to serving for free with nothing attached,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I'm at today. You look at David. David knew he was supposed to be king. Like, he knew that was what he was anointed for.
That's right.
Immediately after he gets anointed, what
Yeah.
does he go do?
Back
He
to the
goes
sheep.
back to the sheep.
That's
he goes
right.
back to serving
Yeah.
with
Yep.
no strings attached. In time, if you're faithful with serving, God's going to elevate
So
you.
good.
That's
I
right.
think the elevation comes first. I really think the key is to serve and serve with no expectation to get anything.
To get
That's right.
anything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's true. I think the way I look at it too is I think sometimes my perspective when it came was always just obedience to Jesus.
Yeah.
It was never like, okay, if I serve here, if I serve at this capacity, that means I'm going to get this and I'm going to get this. I
Yeah.
think the best way to serve is when no one's looking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? Like, I think you said it, like, in my stacking chairs. I don't think you ever graduate from stacking chairs.
No.
That's right.
I still stack chairs. Like, I still pick up trash. I still, like, but I love that because it
Yeah.
reminds me, like, I'm not better than anybody.
Yeah,
Yep.
for
Like,
sure.
I'm not too big for my own self.
Mhm.
Like, I think serving reminds me just to be humble and to
Yeah.
walk in humility, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this too before. It's like the Lord will exalt the humble,
Yeah.
right? And He gives grace to the humble, and He'll exalt you. The lower you go, the higher you'll get, right?
That's right.
But I think
Yeah.
sometimes your heart posture in serving has to be key.
Mhm.
You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to serve here, and I can't wait for my promotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they see me serving, look
Right.
at me, then maybe I'll get that job or
Exactly.
promotion.
And I think that'll rob you. And
Yeah.
it'll destroy you.
Yep.
Because then you're going to look unto God and to say, well, God, I'm working for you. When in reality, it's, am I being obedient to what you're just asking of me?
So good.
Absolutely.
Right? And I think
Yeah.
obedience is key. And we've heard this saying before that obedience is God's love language, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
That's
just
right.
a pure heart, right? To say, God, here I am, whatever it is that you want to do in my life, do it. And then
Mhm.
let the Lord kind of lead you in that way. So,
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, I think of like two things when it comes to serving. I think one is like being like just generous. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I love that verse where it's like God loves a cheerful giver, and it's talking about like finances, right? And but I feel like when you're just cheerfully serving and you're doing it with like thanksgiving in your heart, right? Like for me, those are times that have turned around my perspective on like where I have been in serving. Like, I could be cleaning a toilet that has stains on it that I'm like, I don't know how that got there.
Man,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And it's
Man.
like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, you know, but when I start saying like, you know, but praise God, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I really get to be thankful for right where I'm at. All of a sudden that completely shifts and it makes the time completely different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, another thing I love about serving, sorry, I said two things. I just,
Pop
Go
off.
ahead.
I'm sorry.
You're okay.
But I love it because, you know, like that's worship unto God, you know, and like the
is.
way that we
Yeah.
love and the way that we serve, like that is like, I love verses where it says like your worship's a sweet smelling aroma to the Lord, right? And it's like, I know I keep bringing up bathrooms just because I did like clean bathrooms for a long time,
good.
but it's like, you know, it's like that bathroom place it's no sweet smelling aroma in there, but it's like, but your heart and the way that you serve is sweet and pleasing to the Lord.
That's right.
And I think when you begin to find satisfaction in that what I'm doing pleases God,
Yeah.
I think that is where no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're putting your hand to anything, like that's where your joy can be like fulfilled, because you're like, yo, the God that I pray to, the one that answers my prayers, he's pleased with exactly what I'm doing right
Yeah.
now.
Good.
And that's all I
really good.
need.
That's good.
And then I'm even thinking of like a little bit of the conversation that Chelsea was talking about earlier. Like one thing that God's been really speaking to me lately about is like how he's like our vine dresser, right? And how I heard someone say, like, you know, like these vines are like, you know, when they overgrow, right, they like have to get like cut down, you know. And I love it because, like, for me, I'd be like, God, look how productive I'm doing this thing, or God, look how much this is flourishing, right? But God in his love is withdrawing these things from me, or cutting things out, right? Or even shining things in a new light, to where I'm like, God, like this used to bring me joy, or this used to this or that, but God's like, no, like I'm shifting your perspective right now, because I want you to mature and grow in this area. And I'm like, but this is overgrowing. Like, isn't that healthy? And he's like, no, like that's going to be unhealthy for you. You know what I mean?
That's
And
good.
it's like, when it comes to serving, it's like I think that's so beautiful to know and bring your heart before the Lord, and know how God is shaping you and molding you with that process.
That's good.
That's really good.
I feel like you're speaking Chelsea's language. Talk about the pruning.
Ugh.
God, ow! I watched your message you preached. Was it a month and a half ago, about the cutting and the pruning? And I think you had scissors and you had a rose and
Yes.
you cut. I want to
Yes.
talk about that.
That the pruning process is terrible. Like, it feels bad. I'm just like, I don't want to like
You're not
downgrade
wrong.
the fact that cutting hurts.
Yeah.
Like when God comes and removes, it hurts.
Yeah.
But what I talked about in that specific message, I shared this story of this young girl who wanted to plant a rose garden with her dad. So she goes to her dad. She's like, let's plant a rose garden. She wanted this whole garden of beautiful roses. And because he loved her, he said, okay, like, let's plant this garden. So they start to plant it, and after weeks and months, she starts to see them bloom. And she gets all happy and excited because she sees the work that she put forth is now she's seeing the fruit of it. Until one day she goes out and she sees an empty rose garden. Like, all of the roses were pruned. So she goes back to her dad and she's crying, like, why would you, all my roses are gone. All of my hard work I put into this, it's all gone. Like, where'd my roses go?
Yeah.
And he said, I cut them. And she starts to get mad at her dad because why would you cut all of the work that I put into this?
Wow.
Why would you cut the very thing that you promised me, a
Wow.
garden of roses?
Yeah.
The dad knew something that the daughter didn't know.
Wow.
The dad knew that we can let these roses grow without its annual pruning process. But if we don't cut them, they don't bloom to their fullest potential unless I cut them. The father knew that if I don't cut these, then pests, disease can come and ruin the whole garden. He knew that the cutting today was for tomorrow's growth.
Wow.
The daughter didn't know that. The dad did.
So good.
So when it comes to pruning, when God is cutting and removing things in our lives, we are that daughter.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? The dad knows something that the daughter doesn't
Come
know.
on.
And
So
if you
good.
just trust, my dad loves me,
Yeah.
cut.
That's
It don't
good.
make sense now,
Yeah.
but I'll
But
see
cut.
fruit.
True.
I'll see roses in the
Yeah.
future.
And I think
Amen.
that's
Yeah.
good too. And maybe we'll tap into this. What are some sacrifices that we've had to sacrifice to get to where we are today? Right? I think sometimes, and
You start with that. You start with that.
I want you to start.
We'll go this way. I started first last time. Y'all go
I'll
that
start.
way.
That's
Okay, yeah,
so
I'll
awesome.
start. First, I had to sacrifice my. I was gonna wear all red, and
Oh, that's
I'm
tough.
totally kidding.
So I thought we were going to a deep look. I'm so tired.
Oh, you poor thing.
Like, listen, yeah. Red. Blood? What?
What did I have to sacrifice? I was gonna say another joke, but let me be serious.
That's so funny.
No, let me answer the question or ask the question and then I'll answer it. But what are some things that we felt like the Lord has pruned or He's asked us to sacrifice to get us here? And you mentioned this, that sometimes people compare your chapter 15, right? And they don't recognize and don't read. Bro, I had 15 chapters of this, and this.
Yep.
And I think for me, one of the things that the Lord really had to tell me to sacrifice were just my own personal desires, right? Not that, and I love this because we just read this, or at least I read this recently, that God gives us the desires of our hearts. So I know that, right? I'm in His will, I'm walking this thing out. I'm praying the will of God. But I think there's been seasons in my life where, in regards to, let me just share openly with Backyard Revival, we did Angel Stadium, right? Which was, I mean, we were so like, I think I was crying like every 20 seconds as I was in the stadium, right? Yeah. But I look at that and I remember just the process of the last 5 years, right? Just turned 26. Woo! Just turned there.
Come on.
We getting there.
I know.
We're almost 30 if you think about it.
Well, I try not to.
First of all, no, whoa, us. It's not that old. But anyways,
it's old, girl.
It is.
Shout out to all the 30s listening right now.
But when I was 20, the Lord really asked me, he said, Nicole, here's what I want to do in your life. And I said, okay. And there's 3 things that the Lord said, I need you to put this on the side. Like, I need you to give this to me. I need you to trust me in this process. And one of it was just my own, like just my desires of, I think as young people, you want to be successful or you want to do this. So I gave up college, which looked like ridiculous to so many people. I gave up, I didn't work for 3 years, kind of like you. I served and didn't work for 3 years. I just gave up just own personal promises, right? Where I was like, God, I really desire to have these things, right? And I felt like the Lord was like, I need you to give that to me so that I could do what I want to do through you. And I've never looked at a sacrifice and said it wasn't worth it. Everything I have given up to the Lord has always been worth it. Whether it was like, God, I desire to be in a relationship, but I'm going to give that to you, right? God, I desire to have all of these finances, but I'm going to submit that and give that to you. God, even opportunities, right? Like how many good opportunities would come knocking on my door, but yet I knew God said, that's not what I'm asking of you to do. And so I think for me, the sacrifices was just like to stay humble and to not take the good opportunities, right? To say yes to him even when it was hard, and to just to make the decision that like whatever it is that you're asking of me is worth it.
That's right.
And so I guess the sacrifice I've had to sacrifice was just a lot of personal preference, even just like getting up and going to say yes again, right? Like the temptation to quit, like the temptation to give up, the temptation to not yell and be offended. Like I've just had to make this decision of it's just not worth it, and valuing Jesus and his commission over my wants and my desires.
So good.
God, that's so good.
Your turn.
My turn? I think mine is similar. I have to, because if it was up to me, I would not be in ministry right now, genuinely, because of the trauma that I just went through. So I've had to give up. My desire is to be a real estate agent. My desire is to sell homes. My desire is to live this life. And being in ministry is almost the opposite of that.
Completely.
So I had to give up my desire of the life that I thought I wanted. So it really is a sacrifice of my mindset. And I have to constantly die to what I think every single day. Every single day. Because I have in my mind how I choose to live my life or want to live my life. And I have to every day trust, God, you have me here for a reason, so I'm going to give up the life that I think I want or deserve. It all goes back to humility, to be honest with you. And so I'm sacrificing, I feel like, my desires as well and my wants. Another thing I feel like I sacrifice is my time. There's a lot of time that I could spend doing a lot of other things, and I choose to spend my time serving God and God's people. Tomorrow, 6:30 a.m., I'm choosing to serve people. So it's really sacrificing my time, because I can easily in my free time go get another job, go make more money. It's all me. But I decided in this season, God needs me to serve his people.
That's right.
So it's sacrificing my time. Yeah, and friendships, to be honest with you. You can't take all your friends to the next season with you, man.
Wow.
So friends that you love, friends that you cherish, but they're not going to take you or rock with you in your next season. So I had to sacrifice a lot of friends.
So good.
A lot of friends, which is sad, but yeah.
Mr. DJ?
But we good.
You want to finish your statement?
No, we good.
Yeah, okay.
I said.
But we
said
can listen
what
to
I
DJ
said.
because he's going next. That's crazy.
For me, it's probably 2 things. It'd be, I'm not from here, so it'd be like my home, like leaving back
Where you
home from Florida.
Oh,
Florida.
You mean Florida?
Yeah.
Across the country.
So it'd be that, and like my brothers, like my brothers in terms of like my friends, my teammates, like God's called me to distance myself from them, not to leave them behind, but I can't flourish in my presence and my my holiness and God and still hold on to them, like going two different ways.
That's right.
I have to let go this way.
That's
Then
good.
when he restores me and I'm walking in the full Holy Ghost, I can go back and bring them along with me. And so that's something I'm struggling with. And, you know, it's harder when it's like your brothers, like we want to stay together.
True.
Like we get lit and everything.
Yeah.
It's super harder to forget your past. You want to look behind you and see, like bring them along with your journey, but sometimes you have to leave them so you can go back and bring them and excel them further than you.
Wow.
That's
Word.
good.
So
So
good.
that's just what I'm
Come
struggling
on,
with.
Mr.
That's
DJ.
good, bro.
Jared.
Yeah, I would say for me, I mean, all y'all resonate with me, friends, and with time. But one thing in particular in my life that I really had to lay down was a relationship. So I was with
Talk
a girl.
about that.
I was with a girl for about 3 years. We were dating, you know,
Chelsie, you kill
in
me.
high school, and you know, I was about 19 years old, and I really felt like God was saying, you know, she just isn't the one. It's just not it. Which is so counter what I was thinking. I'm thinking I'm gonna marry this girl. I'm thinking that, you know, like I'm bringing her to the Lord. You know, I'm in her life for a reason. That I'm being obedient to what God's saying, and it was just so counter like what I thought in my mind, my desire, right,
Yeah.
to keep this relationship going. And I remember the Lord just kept pressing and saying, you know, it's just not it. It's just not the one. And I remember one day I reached out to a friend of mine. This is why you need friends. This is why you need godly friends and accountability, because it says in the Word, a man who isolates himself will seek his own desires. And I'm so glad that I reached out to a friend of mine. I'm like, you know what, dude, I gotta do it. Like I gotta lay this down. I gotta break up with her. So I drove to her house that day. You know, I broke up with her. It was heartbreaking, so heartbreaking. And she was so taken back. She was so like, what? This doesn't make sense. We were just good. Like, what? This is out of nowhere. And it was so hard to explain, you know, this is what God is calling me to do, right? So laying this down, I remember driving away in my car, and, you know, windows down, like holy moment, worship music blasting, and I remember God saying, you know, now you could run. You know, there's nothing holding you back.
So good.
There's no more
Wow.
weight in your life, and now you
So
could run and
good.
be who I've called you to be.
Wow.
Wow.
That's the word.
So laying that down, you know, I always use this analogy too. You know, grapes, when they get crushed, right? It's a process that hurts and it's painful, right? But in that crushing, you know, in that fermenting period, that waiting period, you turn into something that's more desirable and more valuable, which is wine,
Fine wine.
right?
Hello. Yeah.
So in that crushing, I felt like God crushed me. Like
Yeah.
I was in pain and I was hurting, but God had the end in mind and saying,
Come on.
man, you could run and be who I've called you to be, and I have so much in store for you.
So
That's
good.
great.
Into turning something like that wine for myself. So
good.
laying that
Wow.
down, this was about 2.5 years ago, and God has done so much in my life, you know, with schooling and with you know, ministry and with work and things like
Yeah.
that. So
That's
it's
great.
worth it. It's
Yeah,
worth
yeah,
it.
it is.
Wow.
No, it is.
But-
Word.
Yeah, I think one thing that I definitely had to like sacrifice was like just I feel like it sounds weird, but like my own schedule, I guess, like my own like agenda, like I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna do this and then I'm gonna get here, you know what I mean? But and that was like really evident when I had to like not go to school for a year and just serve at the church that I go to for just a whole year. And like I actually told this to one of my junior hires. I was like, you know, I served at the church every day for a year and I still messed up. I said, imagine going to church every day and you still mess
Yet
up.
still.
You really need church. You really need
You
Jesus.
really need Jesus.
Anyways, I could go
Me.
on about that. That's different though. But yeah, but that was definitely something that I had to lay down. And I remember going out of high school, seeing the momentum of all my friends going to college, doing these things that they had planned. And I remember God so lovingly, but also just very straightforward, just was like, no, like you're not going to do those things, right? Like you're going to go and you're going to do an internship at your church. And I'm thinking, all right, here we go. It's fine. I'm going to be right next to everyone who's doing all the big things. And the Lord's like, no, like you're going to serve junior hires, and then
Yay.
you're going to clean restrooms.
Mhm.
And
We love
then-
junior hires.
And then you're going to actually, you're going to work the lost and found as well too.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, praise God.
But isn't it interesting, as we all talk, that on the other side of our surrender
Oh yeah, I was
is a life
Yes.
worth
Mhm.
living?
Come on.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just about to get there because it's beautiful. Because
Mm.
now I still serve junior hires.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and you get me near any trash and I'm willing to pick it up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm always looking for things that, you know what I mean? Yeah, like the lost and found things, but it's beautiful because now I see the beauty and the joy that's in those things that God has used in my life.
Yeah.
So
Right.
good.
And looking back now, it's like, man, like I thank God for those moments where I
Yeah.
had to lay things down, where, I remember we would have 6 a.m. prayer, and then I'd spend the whole rest of the day like having to clean like 5 buildings. And I was like, Lord, like, I thought you called me to this, or I thought you said this. And I just remember having moments where it's like, well, if God is faithful, and if he said who he said he is, like, then I just should be thanking God right now for doing this very work that he's doing, because he's doing something in me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know
for
what I
sure.
mean?
True.
Showing up, he has to do something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I love it, because when you do sacrifice, and when you do lay it down, and you really do mean it and say, God, this is for you.
Yep.
I think sometimes we could forget that you're right, it's for God. And you know who God is? Like, come on, like, he can make beauty from ashes. Like, when you, I think one of our friends told us this too, like, when you present something honestly before the Lord that's a sacrifice, he said he meets it with fire, right? Like, immediately. And I love that, because God has met I could look at all y'all and see, man, God has met you guys faithfully amidst these sacrifices.
So good.
And I see the faithfulness of God in each and every single one of your stories. And I've seen it in my life too. Now I'm able to go to school and know that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing in school. So
That's
I just
good.
thank
That's
God
great.
for that.
I love that. What's that scripture? We've mentioned it a couple times. Matthew 16 says, what does it gain a man if he, or what does it profit a man if he gains the
Gain the
whole
world
world
and
but
loses
loses his own soul?
Yeah.
Right? And then the scripture prior to that is, he who loses his life for my sake will find it.
Find it,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
that's right.
think, and we probably got like 5 more minutes left. This went by really fast,
It did.
It's so fast.
by the way.
It's so fast.
But I think we could all attest, like, that statement is true, right? Where it's like, I'm willing to lay my life down for you, Jesus. Whatever it is you ask me, whatever it is that you tell me. And on the other side of that, I've found life, which I think, and maybe you could speak into this,
Wow.
makes all the more of the sacrifices he asks worth it, right? The more he tells me to lay down, the more he tells me to give something up. I know that when I give this thing up, on the other side of it is life. And so I kind of want to touch, we got 5 minutes, and maybe 7, we'll see here. What are some things that you look back to and you're like, what are some successes that you feel like, if I never laid this down, then I never would have gotten here?
I think had I never laid down basketball, I think going back to a decision I made at a really young age.
Yeah.
I was 16 at the time, 17. I laid that down, not knowing what was next. I remember being in the middle of basketball practice. I was leading my college team. Best season of my life. I heard the Holy Spirit say, you're not supposed to be here. And I'm like, whatever. Keep dribbling the basketball. You're not supposed to be here. I set the basketball down. I run to my coach. I said, this is a God thing. It doesn't even make sense to me right now.
No shot in practice?
In the middle of practice.
No.
Went to her office. I said, I think I'm
way.
supposed to quit. She
Wow.
starts crying. She's like, what is it? Like, what can we do? Do you want me to recruit more people? What do you want me to do? And I'm like, no, I just think God's telling me I'm not supposed to be playing.
No way.
Yeah, that's how it ended. And so they try to give me more money. They try to do all these things. And she's like, why? I said, I think I'm just supposed to follow God and to go into full-time ministry.
Wow.
Had I not made that decision,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I'm at today. But in that moment, I didn't know what tomorrow would look like. I didn't know how my college bills were going to be paid. But I just decided to trust that if I make this sacrifice, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Once I realized I was, and God asked me to lay something down again, it was easier. So
Yeah.
the more you do it, and the more you realize God is always faithful, the easier it
'cause you
becomes.
see it.
You see it.
Yes.
You see, I'm like, oh, you've literally never failed. We
Right.
sing about it all the time.
Yeah.
When you experience it, God, you've never
different.
failed.
Yeah.
When the cutting comes again, the sacrifice, this don't make sense, but I know it's going to be good soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel too, I'm a little bit different. I just ghosted Coach Ron.
Yeah.
For the best.
Yes.
I was like, well, I just
Like,
wanna-
where'd Nicole go?
Yeah,
Yeah, the
like-
rapture happened. I got left behind. Yeah.
I would agree with you. Is when I gave up basketball my senior year.
Yeah.
And didn't you leave? You left OSOS when?
I left
Junior year? You left me my junior year.
Yeah.
That was such a sad year.
It was really sad.
Actually, fun fact, everybody left me my junior year.
Yes.
And you left with
We all went.
the absolute awesomely, untalentedly gifted team. Literally, all 5 starters left, right? I
Yes,
think I was the
uh-huh.
only one who stayed.
Yeah.
And you went to Rancho. and gosh, that was so hard. But that's what I would say that too. When I give up basketball, I think it now at 26, so 10 years later, it gives me this perspective of look at all God did in the last 10 years simply by just the willingness to sacrifice. And it's worth it. Maybe just DJ, Jared, and Nate as we wrap this up.
For me, of course, basketball, giving that up. But something that happened more recent would be like giving up my manager position at Champs and to get more involved in the community. Like when I was full time, you remember like in those seasons at SNL where I wouldn't really come. I'd come like one every 2 months or something like that. I'd be inconsistent. But then at camp, Cedar Crest.
Shout out camp.
For real, changed my life.
Go to camp.
19.
Go to camp.
He told me to step down, and I was wrestling with it, and I told her I'd do it next week. A week turned into 2, and 3 weeks, and 3 months. Then we went back to camp for the second time, summer camp. He told me again, and I was like, it was the last night. He was like, DJ, it's time. That's all he said, and I was like, he's right. Then like the following week, I stepped down completely, and that's when I started, getting back into church. Being at the offices almost every day, even though I had no reason being there. I wasn't hired on staff. I was just there, having my presence there. And God he brought wholeness to my heart because there's always that season there was a piece of me that was missing. Wow. And like I always felt lonely. And he was like, you're lonely because you lost your community. You sold your community for money. Wow. I gave up the community I had for the more money, more income. But the more income I had, the less heart I had.
Wow.
And so when I gave up that position and I started, he revealed to me like my friendships and the community here is way different than the outside view.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's so
so like I encourage like even if you don't know what's going to happen, do it. Is you walk by faith, not by sight. Don't follow the money, follow what God say.
That's
that little tiny voice that you don't know what's doing in your head, but follow that little voice.
That's great.
Someone give this man a
What?
Yeah.
So
That's
good.
great.
I would say for me, even just like the decision to follow the Lord. I mean, I didn't grow up in church. I was invited by a friend at 17 years old, and I went to a Christmas party, and I just like was like, whoa, church is kind of cool. Like, other people my age, they're like, go to church.
That's
like,
right.
It's not all formal. Cross your hands. Say a prayer like that. So, I would say the biggest fruit is that I am not in bondage. I am not, I'm not
So
tied
good.
down. I am not, hurting. I'm not in pain, but I live my life free and I live in joy. Like, and it's fun. It's not
So
like
good.
when you get saved, it's not boring. It's not that all this legalism. It's not all like you got to follow this and this, but it's actually joyful and it's actually fun to follow the Lord, right? And you see the fruit of it, and it's just exciting. It's just so fun to see what's in store and what's to come. But I would say the biggest thing is just giving my life to the Lord. Making that decision of getting out of my comfortability. I'm the only one in my family that's following the Lord so far, and obviously praying and believing for them to follow the Lord too. So
That's great.
Yeah, I think in terms of like fruit and success of just like how much God has done in my life from the sacrifice that I just laid down is just honestly like the community that we have today. Like, it's crazy. As soon as I press pause on my life, right, and be like, God, like, you do your thing, like, he just started to bring people that propel me and push me into everything that I've been praying for.
So good.
And if I had not taken a moment to just lay everything down and say, God, have your way, right, I don't know if I would have the people around me to do what God's calling me to do. And because of that, it's just been the biggest blessing I think I could ever have. Like, it's just so amazing.
Yeah. I think the more I look at our community, yesterday we had our Thanksgiving like youth party, and we had like a Thanksgiving board, and I just put like the community I have, because I think for me, I have to remember how blessed we are to just have this, right? And so for us to be able to have each other and to pick each other up, I think is such a great. So I echo and ditto and re-echo what you said.
Wow.
it's pretty good. Don't forget to ditto it.
And I ditto it times 2 again.
Times 2.
And this is us trying to drag this podcast. I wish we could like keep going.
Do you want to go 10 more minutes? Chelsea, why don't you go ahead? Tell us. No, I'm kidding.
Chelsea, why don't you just expose everybody?
Hey, how's your heart? How
Not
are you
good, pray for
really
me,
doing?
guys.
Charles, don't worry. We're gonna
Thank
lay
you. Where's the
hands.
anointing oil?
Yeah.
Now.
Oh,
Your husband is
shoot.
coming.
Listen, I'm I'm ready. You know how like the Lord let manna fall from heaven? Let man fall from heaven. There's like a famine right now, so we're ready.
Yeah. Can I tell you something?
Yeah,
Let me just tell you
but-
something. Let's have a private conversation in public, okay?
Okay.
As you hide yourself in the heart of the Lord.
I've been hidden. I'm basically invisible. So Lord, I'm ready.
Girl,
know what I'm saying?
you ain't
I'm
invisible.
in lime greens.
You are not invisible.
I'm not doing
I'm
too
basically
good.
invisible.
You're
No,
right.
Can I tell you
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
It's worth the wait.
Yeah, you know what? I believe that legit.
As
'Cause
do I.
Jesus.
Anyways, with that.
Moving on. We love being single. Yeah.
with
Do we
that,
have time for one more question, or is that it?
Oh, you have a
Yeah, I
question?
actually have a
Okay,
question.
yeah.
This is related to athletes.
Oh.
So, you know,
Oh.
there comes a lot of stress and doubting yourself when you're underperforming yourself. So, in y'all experience, how have you put yourself back up when you put yourself down or you're in stressful situations?
Oh, that's a great question. Cried.
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah,
I
I
think the
believe you.
first thing I would do is I was always honest with where I was at. Not ever really publicly. I think maybe I wish I was a little bit more honest with friends in high school, but I would cry a lot. And then when I was in high school, and you know this, I really wasn't walking with the Lord until 16, 17, like more so my senior year. So a lot of what I did was I kind of just like, and I wish I never did this, but I just would suck up all of my emotion.
Yeah.
And it ended up affecting me in the long run because I became a person who didn't know how to deal with emotion.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would just toughen it up. But now looking back, I think if I were to deal with pressure, I deal with it a lot differently. I address it. And I actually, not only do I cry, but I pray. And I know like God's never going to put me in a place where it's too hard for me. And so I just quite literally just humble myself before him and say, okay, I need you to lead me and release control. The biggest thing that I've had to do is quite literally release the control because I am a control, like I want to control everything. And so I've just had to learn to trust the Lord in the process.
Wow.
But I would cry a lot in high school. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Privately.
I think you define what is a win for you. And for me, if I'm underperforming as an athlete or just in life, if I know at the end of the day I did the best that I could do and I was obedient, that's my win. The result and the outcome might not be what I wanted to, but I can't always control that. As an athlete, you can't always. Sometimes it's just a bad day. It's just a bad day.
That's true.
But if you redefine your win, am I trying my best? Am I obedient? Am I where I'm supposed to be? You can find a win even in the situation that you're in, and bring in community.
Yeah.
You only need a very few friends to be like, hey, I'm not doing good right now. It's crazy how much community can help you build yourself back
So
up
good.
again. So
Can I
that's
tell
what
you,
would
you
do.
know what changed me, and you'll probably remember this. I think it was our sophomore year, and we had like this, gosh, what would they call it in Osos? Like the Grizzly Cave. Do you remember that? Where like
Locker room? Locker room?
yeah, but it was like the cave in the gym.
I remember
that?
where you roll up the little like
yeah,
garage thingy.
and
looking
we
thing?
okay.
Yeah,
So
I remember
there
that.
was like this moment, and this is literally where I learned a lot from Chelsie. Was our coach put us in this like little locker room with all of the all of the team, and he walked out and he's like, "Y'all need to deal with your problem." Do you remember that?
I remember that.
And I remember one of our teammates was like slapping the floor and she was yelling. She was quite literally yelling at Chelsie. I'm not gonna say who it is. No.
I think I remember.
I'll say it after.
I think I remember.
I'll say it after. And she was like hitting the floor and she was
Oh,
yelling at you.
yes.
Remember, she was
I
yelling.
remember.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I remember.
And
I
she was,
remember.
I kid you not, she was going at it at Chelsie. And I was like, my little like 100-pound self. And I was like in the corner and I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But how you responded to that, I remember, was so mature because I remember the conversation was after your faith. Do you remember that?
I remember.
And it was really calling you out in your faith. And I remember you just walked out. Like you walked out and you sat down in the car and you processed everything. And I remember I sat there, I was like, do I follow her? Or do I like sit? And I remember I sat and there was more commotion, but then I eventually walked out and I found you and you were not at all offended or bothered by it because you were able to take yourself out of a situation and just really process everything. And then you addressed it in such like, probably one of the best ways I've ever seen. And to this day, I'll go back to that moment because you didn't allow your emotions to lead you.
Yeah.
And you didn't allow the heat of the moment to
Yeah.
really dictate.
Because the girl, she wasn't a believer at the time.
No,
you
no,
know
no.
now she is
Yeah.
following
And
God.
thank the
Come
Lord.
on.
Which is
Yeah.
like, I can't respond in emotion in this moment because she's I'm the only reflection.
Yes.
She's coming at me for my faith right now, so I really gotta. So
Yeah.
sometimes the best thing is to remove, to process, to sit for a second, because
So good.
naturally.
And now
I
you know what
wanna
I do?
pop off.
I do that now. Do you know
Yeah.
that when I get a little angry or whatever, I'll walk away
Walk
from
away.
the situation.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because of that, I was like, bro,
Wow.
that is the wisest thing I've ever seen. A
Because if
14-year-old
not, I
girl
would have
do.
been
Yeah.
like, you know. I think
Oh,
I'm
man.
Peter. Like, I would cut an ear off, you know. So
beg
pray
your
for me.
pardon.
Yeah.
Oh,
God's still
man.
delivering me. Amen.
Okay.
Praise God. Well,
Any other further questions? Or Josh? No. Okay. Well, guys, thanks so much, Chelsea. Thanks so much for being
Thanks for
here.
having me. It's
Yeah,
fun.
thank you, Chelsea.
It's
We
fun.
hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Can't wait to see you on the next one. Have the greatest day ever. Peace.